Hi, hello. So it's October, and so it's the month of spookiness and scary stuff. And I like scary stuff. Mostly, I like scary sci-fi. Mostly like science fiction, like Alien or The Thing. Those are some of the greatest like science fiction movie I have ever made. Greatest horror movie ever made. But I do like horror. I used to watch a lot of horror when I was a wee little kid, but I don't watch horror a lot anymore. Anyway, I'm talking about books. So I haven't really explored a lot of horror books. So for this video, I'm trying to explore all the like horror books along the since the genre has been existed, and so I will, for this video I will read three books from three different times: the classics, the book series in like the 90s, and the book series in like modern times, in like our times, in like 2020s and later, right? The first book, the classic book I wanna tackle for this video of like exploring the genre of horror is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. So I just started reading it. I only read like 30 pages of it, and I read the letters part of it. So the book starts off with some letters to Mrs. Saville. So her brother is trying to write a letter to Mrs. Saville, explaining her about his journey to North Pole, where he finds a mysterious person who is man who he really relates with, who he really connects with, and now now the mysterious man is explaining to him he's like just in the North Pole, like kind of stranded with like a sledge, and about like I guess he's the mad doctor who made Frankenstein. I don't know. So I really like the writing is very luscious, it's very atmospheric, it set up the right atmosphere. When I was reading it, I was already feeling a little chilly, a little spooked. Hi, so I finished Frankenstein, finally finished it. Took me a very long time, and yeah, let's talk about it. So agree with that, this being a very influential classic. A lot of things are inspired by Frankenstein, and it's a pretty like referenced piece of literature, and I'm really glad that I could experience this. So there are some parts of it which I'm like blown away by, but there are some parts of it which like drag a little. Dialogue or the contemplation of the main narrator is kind of repetitive. The capturing of that human loneliness, the human grief, the human whole nature, contrasting with the monster and with the creator Victor Frankenstein, is so well done. That's why I think it's like loved by a lot of people. So this was written in like 1880s, and there's like a reformed version is in 1831. I think what I read was the 1831 version, and I also think that that scary, like it started horrific is gonna happen. The narrator keeps referencing that I didn't know that this is gonna happen to me in every single chapter, in every single like after like 5 minutes, after like pages, like those words are repeated again and again with like different dialogues. They're all the same dialogues, and it kind of gets annoying. And also there are some chapters of them like traveling to those places, and honestly I don't care because I don't travel a lot. It kind of breaks the pacing of it, and I did really like the whole plot of it. I did really like the story of Frankenstein, how it represents growing up, how it represents being different, or like finding solace in reading books, and like a longing for love, and like longing for friendship. And it's so like it got to me, and I really liked those aspects. Overall, I think that this book is more depressing than horrifying. Like a lot of deaths, a lot of people die. So there's a lot of deaths, there's a lot of grief and sadness in this book. The plot structure is that one person who is on a voyage is writing a letter to his sister, who is reading the letter from her brother, who is talking to a man who is telling him his story. And that man is Victor Frankenstein, and then Victor Frankenstein is been told story by the monster, and it's just like story on a story on a top of a story, and it just makes it less like real, less like personal to me. I'm so glad that I read this book because it's an essential classic if in like science fiction and horror, and yeah, I'm glad. So I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5 stars. Let's go pick our next book. So the next book I'm gonna pick up after reading Frankenstein is The Shining by Stephen King. So this will be the books written in 20th century, late 20th century, 1977. Written in 1977. We read a book in 1800s, and we will read a book in 1900s, and then we'll go to 2000s. So I'm also reading this book for a challenge, a 24-hour readathon horror edition, and that will be probably be out before this. So I do want to repeat a lot myself of what I said in this book, so go watch that vlog if you want to see more of my thoughts about The Shining. But I love the movie of Shining, and movie helps a lot to like kind of make me patient to read this, cause I was really impatient with it cause it was a really long book, and this is again also like a 500 pages novel. I kind of know the Stephen King style. I kind of know how he writes, and there are some like detours or some like plot threads which I don't think are really important, which are sprinkled through here, which are like not really horror, or like some backstory or some more. Like in this, there's like one chapter about the whole like history of the hotel, which kind of plays part into a plot a little bit, but that chapter doesn't need to be that long. So there are some like chapters which are like felt out of place, but I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the atmosphere. I'm enjoying the isolation of it. Jack Torrance is a very, so that's the main character. So Jack Torrance and Wendy, his wife, and their children, Danny, who is like a special psychic, see into the future and has like a friend named Tony. So they all went to go to as like a caretaker for this overlook hotel, because Jack Torrance lost his job and is looking for a job. That hotel is ominous. There are like a lot of murders happen there. I am kind of in like I have read the first 3 parts of it, so I'm in part 4, around like 240 pages, so halfway through the book. I think I can necessarily say that this book has been scary. There are like few scary parts, like knowing the movie, and a movie so iconic that I remember a lot of part of it, so that kind of helps. Kind of doesn't help while being scared, because you know I like know what is gonna happen. So anyway, I'm gonna continue reading with this and like try to finish up within this in 24 hours. Wish me luck, and yeah, I will come back to you when I'm finished this. So, and I will talk more about it in that vlog. So yeah, see ya. So I finished The Shining by Stephen King, and I really enjoyed it. It's been a long time since I read it. Like I'm updating it after like a week. There were some scary parts, but it wasn't really scary. But I really enjoyed the character work of it, especially the Jack Torrance and Wendy and Jenny. Like those 3 were like phenomenal character writing, and I want to read more Stephen King. Like I know what his strengths are, and I know what his weaknesses are, and I just want to find that perfect book by him. There's like 60 or 70 books which he has written, so there's a lot of like homework to do to like find a Stephen King. And also I'm like very interested in reading Dark Tower. So yeah, I've already ordered some like other Stephen King books where I could start from. So yeah, exciting time to get into this author, because like it by him was also really good, but it was too long, and this was also felt a little bit too long, especially part 4, but everything else was great. So yeah, 4 out of 5 stars. Now let's get to the next book. Final book I want to read, which is like the modern horror, the face of modern horror. Like it was hard to choose which one should I read. I had this book which is called What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. It's a really like well-loved book. I think it's really short. It's like a retelling of another book or like a poem by Edgar Allan Poe, I think, called The Fall of House of Usher or something. I'm not really sure, but I'm gonna get started on it. And yeah, I'm excited to read it. So this will be the novel written in 21st century. Hi, so I'm 40 pages into What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, and I have some thoughts like basically that I do not understand what is going on. I do not understand the plot I do not understand the premise. I just understand that we have this soldier who are like, I must say non-binary. They are from Galatia, which I don't know if it's a real place or not. But in there, if you are a soldier, you can use that soldier pronouns instead of like male or female pronouns. So yeah, they are a soldier, and they are going to visit a friend who is ill, and in like a manor, in the usher manor in like some village. And when they visited, they find these weird mushrooms, and they are want to not harm the hairs. And also the friend they are visiting is really weak, and and her brother is also really weak, and her brother and them and the main character also served in like a war. So yeah, so they are in this mansion, and that mansion is really like gloomy and spooky. And yeah, that's where we are. And I don't really know what is going on with medically with the sister, and also with the brother, and also the the atmosphere and the gloomy atmosphere of what the secrets are. But I'm definitely intrigued, and I want to read more of it. So I must start reading more of it, and I will update you when I like know what's going on, and like what this book feels like actually. So last night I just finished What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, and this book is amazing. I like, okay, so it started a little bit like I was like, I don't know what's going on. But as soon as okay, so there's a great character in this called Mrs. Potter or Miss Potter, and she's great. I love her. She's my favorite character in this whole book. uh, so Miss Potter is a mycologist, someone who like practices studying mushroom or like fungi. And I'm studying mycology during this semester. And it's like it's a great contrast to like to apply what I have learned into this book and like figure out what's going on. And I 100% figure out what's going on into like 50 pages into the book. This book is like 120 pages, so that's not a like big deal. But anyway, so if you really like something like Last of Us, if you like the scientific part of Last of Us with like the whole what's the name of the mushroom, I always forget the name. It's behind the cordyceps taking over the humans in like Last of Us video game or the TV series. I think you will really like it. I think you will really like this book. And there's also a sequel, which yeah, I'm really excited to read. The moment we hear, the moment I figure out like what is going on is when the main character touched their friend who was sleepwalking, who was ill, and they got some white hairs in it. I quickly figured out what's going on, because like mycology. And so yeah, I am so excited to read more of T. Kingfisher. And so in this book, after the book ended, T. Kingfisher kind of they kind of like talked about what inspired it. And of course, The Fall of House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe is one of it. And also Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia is also like recommended to it, and T. Kingfisher highly recommends to read that book. So I have already added that to my TBR, and I can't wait to read that one also. So it's also like a horror novel which involves fungi, and I like fungi. It's a cool organism. It's a cool microorganism. So anyway, What Moves the Dead was probably the favorite horror book I read for this challenge to to come back to the circle, this play takes place in 1890s. So the three horror books we read took place in different centuries, but the last book is written in 2021, I think, in around 2021. So it's like a 21st century novel which takes place in 18th century, and for 18th century we read Frankenstein, and then after Frankenstein we read the 20th century novel. The centuries are confusing. The centuries are so freaking confusing. Like, it's +1, right? But I also always forget. So yeah, for the 1800s we read Frankenstein, and which was great. I am glad I read it because it's an essential classic in my mind, and it holds up. It still holds up. And then we read Shining, which wasn't really that horror, but it made me want to check out more Stephen King books, and I cannot wait to dive into more Stephen King. So that was the books for 1900s, and for the 2000s, as you know, I read What Moves the Dead. So yeah, this was a really fun genre exploration about horror, how horror has evolved. Of course, you cannot tell how horror has evolved by reading just 3 books, but it kind of gives me an idea of how horror genres, different types of horror genres there are. So Frankenstein and What Moves the Dead were more of a science fiction-y monster horror, and whereas The Shining was more ghostly and psychological horror. It's a fun genre. I really like this genre, and I wanna explore a lot of it. It was a good experiment, I would say, to explore this genre. And yeah, I like making this kind of video where I try to explore different kind of genres and subgenres. They're interesting, and they help me find my own and develop my own book reading taste. So yeah, it's a fun time. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and please like and subscribe, and I will see you later. Bye.